Ebony. So it's really nice to have you onto the show. So you've achieved a lot throughout your career. You've worked for Eurocenter Schools, you've worked for EMAP, you featured on Women's Talk on BBC. You've even worked for the likes of Apple, so you've had a whole really good CV that's led into the foundation of your digital marketing agency, EbonyHer.
Mm-hmm.
So give us a background on who you are and what you've achieved.
Thank you so much, Micah, and thank you for, you actually remembered a lot more about me than I remember myself when you mentioned Apple. Yes, that is a blast from the past. So yes, I've worked in, like you said, as a marketing manager. I worked at Eurocenter Language Schools. That was basically covering a team of about 10 marketing executives. Prior to that, I was working in life science, so that was biotechnology. And I was a senior marketing assistant, which was really good because I was able to work alongside a very gifted senior graphic designer. So that's where I developed a lot of my digital content skills. I am an ACIM accredited marketer, so that means that I'm an associate of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I recently got that this year. And as you know, I did my master's and graduated just over a year ago in digital marketing. And on the side of that, I was, before starting up EbonyHer digital marketing agency, I was actually doing some freelance projects in the music space. So I worked with, we did a sold out show with Shai Makeda, so I ran the marketing and PR campaign for that. I worked with Ghostface Killer from the Wu-Tang Clan, and that was doing their social media campaign, and a reggae artist who's a massively renowned reggae artist called Luciano Messenger. So it was really good to be able to have the opportunity to network with some great people that birthed EbonyHer digital marketing content agency.
Wow. And I wanted to ask, because you come from a Christian church background, how has that impacted the way you approach business practice?
That's a very good question. I would say it's allowed me to be more positive, think big, but also at the same time operate with a code of ethics which I get from I base my values on the teachings of the Bible. So although I don't go to church as often as as I once did, I still stick to that belief system. And what's quite good about that is because it keeps me in a positive space. I believe it's always good to operate in business with a positive mindset, with a can-do attitude. And the foundations of that was built from my upbringing in the church.
Wow. And I also wanted to ask, what are the greatest challenges you've faced in the business world?
I like that question, because my uncle, Pastor Errol Williams, always says challenges are like don't see challenges as challenges, but more opportunities. So I would say, in order to answer your questions, the challenges I faced being a young woman, especially a young Black woman, I don't know if I'm still in the young space, being 30 now, but is being heard. That's the truth, being heard, getting people to understand your mindset, understand where you're going, rather than necessarily stereotyping you and putting you into a box, because you might have a brilliant idea working in corporate industry, but you're, at a level because you may not be senior enough to make those big changes, or you may be seen in a particular way. And that can be really difficult, because sometimes I found myself coming up with an idea or a strategy or a plan and presenting it to key stakeholders in the business. And it's like it just tumbleweed, no one hears it. And then guess what would happen? About 2 weeks later, maybe a month in, somebody more senior than you will come out and say the exact same thing verbatim, and you don't get the credit. They act like you didn't say anything at all, and that could really pigeonhole you and it can really take jabs at your self-esteem. So I would say that was a challenge, but why was it an opportunity? It meant that it was an opportunity for me to grow. It wasn't easy, but I turned that challenge into an opportunity, because it means I can grow. And if people don't want to hear me or they can't hear me, I realized it's my job to make them hear me.
Wow.
Hopefully that answers it.
Incredible what you've just said there, because there's lots of young people, especially for a lot of young people that are in the BAM community or ethnic minority communities, that have brilliant ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they feel that they might not get the opportunities that some others may. So it can really discourage them and stop them from progressing and, you know, achieving what they can be. So what you said there, even though you might think it's a short thing, it's actually quite important. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask, for you as somebody that is now accomplishing and high flying, how have you overcome these challenges? Because I know there's going to be a whole bunch of young people watching this, looking at you saying, yeah, so I want to start my own business too. So what advice would you give them to overcome those challenges?
Every no that you receive, I learned this from working in network marketing. I didn't even mention that. I worked in network marketing, which this was brief though, when I was much younger. And it was, some people might think are pyramid schemes. They're not, but it comes across that it can be. But one thing I learned from there, powerful, is networking is important. Massively important. What does networking look like? Because everybody throws that word out there. Networking means for young people to speak to people like yourself. Come and speak to people like myself who are accessible and happy to help, do you know what I mean? And happy to share ideas and find like-minded people. So that is what network marketing did for me. And another thing which I learned is that for every no you receive, so every time somebody says no, every time somebody ignores you, every time somebody puts you down, it means that you're closer to a yes. Does that make sense? So it sounds crazy, but it's actually a good thing. This is there was a motivational speaker, because I really like listening to motivational speakers on YouTube. That's another tip as well. And I remember there's so many. There's Ed Blunt. There's so many. I can't even think of them right now. But they're quite good at giving those little key tips. You can find them on YouTube. Even Gary Vee. That's more marketing, but Gary Vee is another resource that I would recommend. Who talks about, you know, don't worry about the no's and just keep going until you get a yes. So that would be my tip.
Wow. So what you've also said there is how you've continued to push even through all of the setbacks you've had. So I'm now going to throw in another question, because you've just touched on something really interesting. So I want to ask you, from a person that's experienced rejection and knows, what advice would you give to a young person that needs to bounce back from rejection to get to?
I would say grounding. What does that look like? For me, grounding, again, we talked about earlier, you know, I explained after your question that I base a lot of my values on Christianity, right? So where my grounding comes from personally would be through prayer. And if that's not something that one does, then family, support network, friends. Sometimes I will throw in there that some of your friends and some family members may not have been as supportive as you would have thought in the beginning. However, you will find that there are emerging members of friends and family that you probably didn't expect that will come out and want to support you and want to build you up. And support doesn't just look like, support comes in many different forms, right? So it could just be a powerful text message that they might have, you know, you might reach out and then they text you back and just say something nice. And that's, for me, is how you deal with rejection. It's about not focusing on the rejection. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's okay to focus on it, because for a brief moment, just to find out what you can learn from it. But then it's about focusing on the positives from those who matter and surrounding yourself with those people. Because I remember there was one motivational speaker, I can't remember his name right now, but he said he hangs around with people so that he can get, he hangs around with positive people that are better than him so he can get outside of his own thoughts. What that means is when you have negative thoughts that are coming into your mind, because we're human, sometimes when you're pouring a lot of negativity, rejection, it starts to weigh you down a bit. So he hangs around with people that are better than him, that can take him outside of himself. So I would say definitely networking with the right people. And if you don't have that family support network, you may have that friend support network. And if you don't have any of those, find it. There's a lot of resources out there where you can find it. There's groups, like-minded groups, WhatsApp groups, and there's you know, Instagram groups. There's many other Facebook groups. People like yourselves, I'm sure you can, you know, point them in the right direction. And me too. So it's about finding it, but the resources are there.
Wow. And it's crazy because sometimes like what you're saying is like lots of nuggets. So while you're appealing to a diverse range of young people. So I'm now going to ask you another question off the back of what you've just said.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get other people to believe in your vision?
Oh, good question. I would say you first have to believe in it. And that sounds, the reason why you have to first believe in it, it sounds like that would be obvious. But then when you sometimes, especially in marketing, well, in business in general, you'll ask somebody what is their why. Now for me, my why for starting up EbonyHer, to be honest, it was something that I always wanted to do. You know, I think I talked about I was working, you know, doing freelance projects outside. And then I got made redundant last year at my last role, which they do say a lot of people that go through redundancies come out better than before because they realize that they can't necessarily depend on life to happen to them. They have to go out and make things happen. So for me, I guess my why became creating more diversity in marketing, because even before I went into the industry, I realized that there was a lack of BAME representation in many of the organizations in the marketing, but at a senior level. I remember I'd go to companies and the first thing I do would be to look at the org chart, the organizational chart. So that basically means that from the top down, finding out everybody, because a lot of the companies I've worked in have been international. They've been global companies. So I would like to look at the structure. Who are the stakeholders? Who is the CEO? Who are the directors? To see if it's diverse. And I realized that just in my experience, it wasn't very diverse. You know, I think in the role before my last role, me and a couple of other people were at different departments, but were at the most senior level for those departments as being from the BAME community. And that was still senior assistant. So there was still a ceiling. So my passion and my why came from the fact that I know I can do my job and do it well. I want to help others build their brand, build their business as well. And my why and my drive is to create that diversity in marketing and training others to do the same, because I think training is important. So in answer to your question, how do you get other people to believe in what you believe in? Was that your question?
Believe in your vision, yeah.
Believe in your vision?
Yeah.
I believe that people can hear my passion. And my passion comes from my why. So if I first believe in it and I then explain it, I truly believe that those who are the right people that will understand that passion and believe in that vision will come. And then there's different stages, like with everything. You'll have the early adopters. This is something that in marketing we talk about. You have the in technology innovation. Early adopters are those who believe in your vision right from the beginning. And then you have those, I can't remember, there's early adopters, and then you have the end stage. And the idea is that whilst you're continuing on your journey to success or wherever you want to go, those will believe in your vision after they see it, because it's vision. So once they see it as you go along that journey, they will naturally believe. But you first have to believe in what you're doing, because if you doubt yourself, then it's virtually impossible to get anybody else to believe in what you believe in.
Wow. And I wanted to also ask, because you're fantastic at management and leadership. So how has your values and your experience enabled you to become exceptional in that area?
Oh, thank you, Micah. You've put that so eloquently. I'm still learning. I like to know and always keep that mindset of still learning. And it's great to see individuals like yourself who are inspiring and building such a fantastic platform to help others. So I just want to throw that out there. I would say that in terms of becoming in management and leadership, I learn by doing. That's just me. You have different learning styles, right? You have kinetic, visual, reading, I think different learning styles. I learn by doing. And I've put myself in positions where I've had to do it. And it's not necessarily easy. You have to be willing to go out and take rejection. you know, willing to go out, take critique, especially being, you know, a woman or even a black man. You know, we have to be prepared for that, because when you're putting yourself out there, but what is positive about doing that is once it's happened, once you've had that first criticism, or even, it's not always criticism, sometimes people support you if you have the right people. You build, you grow. As you continue, you learn more. It takes time, but you just continue, just keep striving through. And always think about, there was a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad for Teens, which I read when I was a teenager. They've got Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the other ones, but you know, but I remember reading in that book where Robert Kiyosaki talks about, in every experience or any job, work experience that you've had, focus on the lesson. So even if you're earning minimum wage or below minimum wage, it's not about the money, it's about the lessons that you learn as you go along. And that's what led me to this point. So it means that working in network marketing, I had to manage a team. I had to get people to believe in the product that we were selling. Do you understand? Working at Apple. When Apple is fantastic. One thing I learned there, I was a business specialist, which was still good, to be fair, at the time, because I was only like 19, 20. But the marketing techniques that you learn at Apple, which is one of the biggest technology innovation companies in the entire world globally, is that they pay careful attention to the psychology of people, and they understand human behavior. And I learned from that management, working with people, and also teaching people how to believe. So for example, the iPad. I watched how they would run their iPad campaigns in the earlier days. And I don't know if you remember this, Micah, but they would have queues standing outside of the Apple stores, even a night or 2 days before they've even launched the product. Why? Yeah. Because they worked on creating a story, a compelling story, and a belief that when you have this iPad, you feel fantastic. And it's all marketing. You know, at the end of the day, it's a tablet. There are many other brands of tablets. There are many other brands of phones, but it's the story behind the brand. And that's what taught me how to, you know, create a belief system and also how to lead, essentially.
Yeah. Wow. Brilliant answers. So I've got 3 more questions for you.
Okay. On the way.
So the first question I'm going to ask you, what are 3 pieces of advice you can give to a young person that wants to start a business?
3 pieces of advice. Okay. First thing I would say, this is more of a practical one, but find out what resources are already out there. So one key resource is the Prince's Trust Enterprise Program, which goes up to the age of 30. Why that is fantastic is if you're thinking of starting a business, even if you're not sure about it, they're very good at offering free business mentor services and also business level 1 courses for young people. So that's my first advice. It's more practical. Second advice, again, is something I've mentioned before, but finding out your why. Now, the reason why the why will come up as being very, very important all the time, you'll hear that a lot, I'm sure you have, is because that's what's your continue mode. Continue mode is like motivation. So when you're feeling a lot of rejection, when you're feeling, there's something called imposter syndrome, which I've experienced and at times still experience. It's always good to remember why you're doing it. What is the goal? Because if you can't see the end goal, then you have no idea where you're going. Do you know what I mean? So I would say that would be my second tip. My third tip is this is quite an unusual one, but have fun with it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's very unusual, but what I found is that I was always too serious. It's good to be serious, but what I mean is we're still young, right? So you have, in order to get other people to buy into your vision, sometimes it has to be fun. It has to be fun to the point where other people feel like they can invest in your business. It's going to appeal to young people. And if your why is intact, if your why makes sense, if it's strong enough, then everything else will piece together. So that will be my 3 tips.
Wow. And I'm sure this conversation will inspire loads of young people. So how do they get in contact with you?
Me? Oh, they can get in contact with me at www.ebonyher.com. Or they can even reach out to me on Instagram. EbonyHer on Instagram. And I can even give my email address, which is ebony.douglas@ebonyher.com. And I'm on all social media platforms. So once you type in EbonyHer in Google, you'll be able to find me.
Yeah. And finally, there may be some churches, youth organizations, community organizations that want to use the services of EbonyHer. So in terms of using your services, do they contact you using the same method, or?
Using the same method. I'm pretty accessible via all three mediums as well. And EbonyHer is definitely, I'm always on EbonyHer. So EbonyHer is definitely the platform to contact me on.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we're looking to do more business-oriented stuff soon, so we're going to bring you back because this has been phenomenal interview. Absolutely excellent.
Thank you for your questions as well. So, yeah, it's really amazing that you think of them.
All right. Well, we'll speak to you soon, Ebony, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Micah, and we'll speak soon.
We'll speak soon.
Keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Ebony, what's your company called?
EbonyHer.
EbonyHer. Watch out for this lady, EbonyHer. She's going to be a massive manager, promoter, entrepreneur. Well, she is. Because the talent that I saw at her birthday party alone, I'm going to be contacting her.